Hello, everybody, and welcome into our latest second round preview show here at the Hockey Writers. And today we're going to be looking at the Boston Bruins. It's the Florida Panthers, a rematch of last year's first round that had the Bruins get kicked in the first round by the Panthers after the Panthers came back from a 3-1 deficit. Almost had that happen again. The Maple Leafs did it, but this time they got through. Got Hannah and Jacob here. Jacob's going to step in for Joey for the Panthers. But Hannah's back for round two. How's it going?
Woo. Finally recovered from last night's game.
I know it's a quick turnaround doing a preview here because as everyone's watching this, the series will start tonight. So we're going to it's pretty quick to get started, both because it went to game 7. And the Panthers has been off for a bit. So let's just talk about the first round for just a little bit here. Hannah, what did you take away from that first round? I mean, it kind of got a little hairy at the end, thinking, oh no, it's going to happen again. But David Pastrnak made sure that didn't happen by scoring the overtime winner. So it's basically a tale of two series, really.
Seriously, it was, the Bruins were one team for the first 4 games, and then they were a second team for the second 3 games. And so it really going into this next round, it's which team is going to show up. Is it the team that played game 1 through 4? Even if they lost game 2, I thought they played decently in it. Or is it going to be the team that played games 5 through 7, which 5 and 6 in particular, the Bruins were listless when they got on the ice. They had no fire behind them, no immediacy. They had 3 shots in total in the first period on game 5 and game 6. So they were not shooting. They just didn't look like a playoff team. And if they show up like that for round 2, I don't think they'll be seeing round 3. So I think round 1 was definitely, like you said, the tale of two teams. And now the story is which team is going to show up against Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the goaltending changed. I mean, Hallmark did play a couple, but Jeremy Swayman was the main guy throughout,
Oh
and he
yeah.
was great throughout the whole series. So if he's the same, I mean, I think the team in front of him has to have played differently, but overall, I think they don't have to worry about goaltending.
No,
I think they're good.
no, no. Jeremy Swayman is, I think Jim Montgomery said it best. He was the best player, and there was no contest.
Yeah,
Nobody else is touching his MVP from the round 1.
for sure. So we'll see if we can continue that. Over to you, Jacob. I mean, the Panthers had a bit of an easier time. They only lost once. Went through the Lightning in 5 games. It looked like the Lightning may have had a little bit of a spark to maybe stage a bit of a comeback, but I mean, Panthers ended up winning it pretty easily. What did you think about that first round there?
But I don't know if you could say that they had an easy time. And I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning are a bit of a challenge when it
Mm.
comes to any sort of playoff hockey. They can score. Goaltending is always a challenge. Andrei Vasilevsky isn't exactly a walk in the park when it comes to trying to score goals. So it was definitely, it was definitely a battle through and through when it came to that 5 game series. But I mean, yeah, it still ended in 5 games, and they still had to go through their trials and tribulations, but they still won it in a good, convincing fashion. And they looked like the top team that they were all season long. And their top players played like the top players that they are. They got goal scoring from the goal scorers that were supposed to do it. Their defensive players were playing supremely well. And Bobrovsky looked stellar in the moments that he needed to. And then in some moments, he looked like, that other side of Bobrovsky that some Panthers fans are like, oh God, why? So, it's that duality of the Panthers goaltending that was a bit of a struggle. But all in all, it was a fun series to watch, even though it was 5 games. It easily could have gone to 7 if a couple of things go the other way for the Lightning. There was a lot of goalposts that got hit. There was a lot of big saves out of Bobrovsky. There was a lot of big saves out of Vasilevsky. So it was a closer series than 5 games really would have showed. So uh, I'm personally happy that it only went to 5 because it could have gone a lot longer.
For sure. So, I mean, going in, the rested team will be the Panthers. Sometimes that's not a good thing. The Bruins have gone through a bit of adversity now, I mean, throughout the season and then in this series too. So they may be coming in a bit more battle tested. Who knows? But over to you. I mean, Hannah, what do you think about this series? I mean, storylines. I mean, there's quite a few if you want to look at it. It is a rematch from last year. I know the Bruins are probably going to want that not to happen again. Have it a bit of a, it's if what happened, obviously getting kicked out after having that 3-1 series lead. What are you following throughout this series here?
Yeah, like you were just saying, the Bruins Panthers rivalry in the last couple of years has been really fun to watch. They've been, I think, even though last year's playoffs didn't go the way the Bruins wanted, I think that was still a really fun series to watch. So I'm hoping that we'll get that again. All four regular season matchups between the two teams were also enjoy like fun, exciting games. These are two teams that don't like each other, so they should hopefully bring out some fire, bring out the best of each other, and make some fun hockey to watch. I think one of the big storylines going back to goaltending is whether or not they start Jeremy Swayman in game one, or if they give him a break and go with Linus Ullmark for games one and maybe even game two. Again, I don't think Linus Ullmark played particularly bad in his one game in the last series. He did lose game two, but I didn't think he was awful. It was just Jeremy Swayman was playing out of his mind the rest of the series. So, again, they're coming off of, they played Saturday night, they played Thursday night. Do they give Jeremy Swayman a break on Monday night and start Ullmark? And I think that would be an intriguing, if they go back to the goaltending rotation at all in round two, will be a storyline to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing it all season, right? Going back and forth, and it worked out. But, in the playoffs, you ride the hot hand for the most part, I think. And that's what they did. So I guess it'll depend on if they want to see how he plays against the Panthers to start and then maybe go, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting having two really good goaltenders and see how that
Yeah,
works.
it's not a bad problem to have.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, it's always good to have someone you're confident in. It doesn't matter who's in that, right? Jacob, what about you for the Panthers going into this? So what storylines are you following? Like, obviously there's that rivalry that seemed to be building now. What are you kind of watching here?
Yeah, rivalries in hockey are never a boring subject whatsoever, and especially when it carries over into playoffs. So it's always something fun to watch. But as far as storylines for the Panthers, that there's that forward group that's really just been entertaining to watch. There's that clutch playoff Carter Verhaeghe that's really just been surging throughout this playoff so far. He's just been absolutely dynamite so far. He's got 5 goals and 9 points. He's a +7, and he's just been absolutely lighting up every single chance that he has. He's just been a superstar during this playoffs, and was kind of doing it last playoffs too. So watching him, Barkov has been absolutely lighting it up. Matthew Tkachuk has been a superstar so far. I'm loving just seeing all of these star players performing like the star players that they should be. It's nice to actually see all of that star power come to the forefront and seeing all of that just actually on display, because sometimes the playoffs isn't all about that. Sometimes the playoffs is, oh, let's grind it out. Let's get the fourth liners to do everything. How much is the depth really going to affect how we're going to win these games? And then, your top scorers only end up with 2-3 points by the end of your first round or your second round. And, the stars don't really have a chance to shine. So it's nice to see all of those players really put on display for both sides even. So for Boston, you see their goaltending on display, and for Florida, you see their offense on display. So following those types of storylines, it's really fun to see how that's going to play out in a round like this. Can the goaltending or can the scoring continue, and which side is really going to, come to the forefront more?
For sure. Going off of that, Hannah, with the star players, I mean, they mentioned that during the Toronto series that Boston doesn't really have a lot of stars. I mean, David Pastrnak for sure. Brad Marchand, yeah, he'd be in that category. Other than that, though, they don't really have anyone. Who are you watching in this series for players wise? I mean, Jake DeBrusk, great series against the Maple Leafs, maybe kind of slowed down after the first few games, but who are you kind of watching to kind of come forward to against the Panthers?
Yeah, I think really am going to be looking at that top group of players because I don't think they necessarily played as well as they should have in the first round. Pastrnak came in when it was necessary, when it was needed. He came up big in overtime, but before that, you had Jim Montgomery saying that he's talking to Pastrnak about how he didn't really show up in games 5 and 6. Brad Marchand had great games in 3 and 4, and then also kind of disappeared in 5, 6, and 7. So, looking to those guys to be the star elite players they are, because again, like you said, the Bruins don't have as much of the big firepower that you expect from a playoff team or a team of that, finished with their record. A lot of their success this regular season was on guys like Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, who aren't the biggest names, but they stepped up during the regular season. The goaltending played a big role in their success. And a lot of, besides the goaltending, a lot of those guys were very streaky in the first round. So really, looking to them to be the leaders that they were during the regular season more consistently in round 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the depth, like you said, a lot of those other guys stepped up during the season, so they need to do that again because the Panthers do have a lot more of those star talent.
Exactly.
Guys like Reinhart who scored like over 50 goals, almost approached that 60 goal mark there. I mean, Jacob, what are you looking at those guys, those star players? Or are you going to look at some of the Panthers depth because they have a lot of it too?
Yeah, I mean, the depth is absolutely something you can look at because they made a lot of key moves to really make sure that their lineup had all of that depth that you need. So you can go all the way down to their third line and still look at that and be like, well, that could be a makeshift first or second line because they have plenty of players that can still step up and be those, top 6 type of players. So everybody from Carter Verhaeghe all the way down to, Anton Lindell, Vladimir Tarasenko, Sam Bennett, who hopefully will be back for this type of series. Evan Rodriguez, even though most people consider him probably a bottom 6 player, has shown the capacity to be a top 6 type of player. There's plenty of capacity to step up and be much more than what they have been up to this point. So there's a lot more to show. But when it comes to the star power that they already possess, your Sam Reinhart, your Matt Tkachuk, your Alexander Barkov, there's plenty of that to go around. So Boston now has to, again, shut down immense star power. They already had to do it with Nylander, Marner, Tavares, Matthews. So now they got a whole nother set to deal with. So question is, can they do it? I'm not sure if they have it in them again. It'll be a tough task. And I think it's a whole different type of monster because it's a whole different type of system that Florida runs. And it's a whole different type of, offense that they are going to try and run through them. And I'm not sure if just switching goaltenders is going to be the solution for them.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the Panthers there, and also like Boston Bruins didn't have to deal with a healthy Austin Matthews or a completely healthy William Nylander, even though he was really good. I don't think he was completely healthy. Same thing with, Mitch Marner was still coming off that high ankle sprain, I believe, too. So a lot of their stars weren't really there. So, now the Panthers, a lot of their guys are healthy and good to go. Like Reinhart was really good in the first round, too. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle for sure. Let's move on then to keys to victory of how each of these teams are going to win this series. Hannah, what about the Bruins? They had trouble with the Maple Leafs at the end there. Now they're going up against, like Jacob said, a whole new system, a whole new team that they did have problems with and last year. And it's pretty much the same team, maybe a little bit better with some of their guys. How are they going to win this series?
Yeah, so the Bruins have proven that they can beat the Panthers during the regular season. I believe they won all 4 of their matchups. So they have found the keys to winning against this team before. Again, this is a very healthy team. So it's going to be hard. It's not going to be the same. Obviously, the regular season and postseason are completely different beasts. And last season showed that particularly. So I really think the keys to victory for the Bruins are, one, it's, attitude, like I started to say at the beginning, what team is going to show up in front of the goaltending? Because if the goaltending is going to be set, they can't just rely on goaltending. Jeremy Swayman can't defend the net and score goals for the team. They need to be able to score.
Yeah.
And they showed that in the first half of the series against Toronto. They had goals from Jake DeBrusk. Their first goal of the series came from Johnny Beecher, a fourth liner.
Yeah.
Like if they can get goals from up and down the lineup and have excellent goaltending, this will be a more competitive series than I think people will be expecting. But it will come down to what team shows up for the Bruins. If they show up like they did in games 5 and 6, if they come and they don't look ready to play, the Panthers, again, Toronto had injuries. They weren't at full capacity, so they were able to hang on in games where I don't think they'll be able to hang on if they play like that against the Panthers. I think this series could get away from them very quickly if they show up in games 1 and 2 like they did at the second half, if it continues from the second half of the first round. So again, it's really getting its attitude and it's getting scoring again. The Bruins have struggled with their power play a lot in the last couple of years, but it was really clicking in the first half of the series. They had 6 power play goals in the first 4 games, and then they didn't have any power play goals in the final 3 games. So again, it's getting back into that rhythm of scoring and playing like they're showing up and being on the ice and playing with a ferocity that they can play with and they are capable of showing up with.
Yeah, I mean they have to be the team that started the series against the Maple Leafs, basically, right? That's who.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. If they want to be competitive, they need to be that team, the team that is getting scoring from all 4 lines, a team that has excellent goaltending, some good defense. Like they have to be at their top capacity to compete with a really excellent Florida Panthers team with a much, like we were talking about, with higher star quality players.
Yeah. And Trent Frederick was really good too against the Maple Leafs. There's another depth guy that came to play. So maybe they have the guys that can do it. So we'll see if they can actually do it. Jacob, what about you for the Panthers too? I mean, obviously they're a much different team that played against the Bruins last year. How are they going to do it again, basically?
I think the key for them is to really try and suffocate the offense that the Bruins can generate and really just get on top of them with the offense that the Panthers are able to generate. So keeping with the transition game that they were able to really show off against the Tampa Bay Lightning and stick to that type of game. I don't think that they need to change a whole lot with the way that they were playing from that first round. I think if they stick to that same type of game plan, it's the same type of situation. You have a top-end goaltender that you need to get to early, and you have a defense that can try and shut you down really well. So if you get on top of them and you suffocate the offense while getting in on the goaltender as fast as you possibly can, I think all of that combined is really where they're going to succeed. So I think just sticking to the same game plan is their key to success here more than anything else, because the similarities between the two teams are surprisingly similar, for lack of a better word, more than anything else. And despite some people maybe thinking that Boston is, maybe on a bit of a downtrend, I don't think that they are. Maybe I'm in the minority in that opinion, but they might not have the star power, but just as a team and as a whole, they still have a great system going on. So you still have to compete with that type of a system. So the Panthers have the capacity to do it. They showed that they can do it against Tampa Bay. Now they have to do the same thing with Boston. So regardless of Swayman or if it's Allmark and net, getting on top of the goaltender, getting goals in early, and then just suffocating the offense and getting every chance out fast. That's the key.
Yeah, I think the Bruins are a very underrated team in that sense too. I mean, they don't have a lot of stars, but they play a really tight system, and they showed that in the first few games against the Maple Leafs. It's just maybe fell away from it a bit in the last few games, but they definitely can play that system and be an effective team. All right, quickly, let's talk about some X factors in this series. I'll stay with you, Jacob. What's an X factor for you, player or a situation here?
I'm going to say it's special teams. The Panthers power play has been it looks like it can be lethal, but then at times it's just completely flat. And their penalty kill has a lot of potential, both ways, that they can just shut down anything you can possibly throw at them, and then they can transition to actually score off of their penalty kill because they have a lot of weapons that they put out there at the same time. So using their transition abilities on their penalty kill, as well as actually capitalizing on their power play, is going to be huge in this type of a series where chances, I think, are going to be fairly limited with how good the goaltending is probably going to be. I'm not sure how good Bobrovsky is going to be in a series like this. It is really going to be dependent on the defense to help him out. But overall, I think the power play and the penalty kill are going to be huge factors for the Panthers in the series.
Yeah, special teams always an X factor. I think any team for sure. Hannah, I believe Jake DeBrusk was your X factor in the last set. I can't remember.
Yes.
I know he was mentioned. And he was. He was a pretty big factor. So what do you got for this series?
I know. I guess I said something right last time. So that was definitely a fun thing for games 1 and 2 to see him doing so well. I also think special teams would be a big thing for the Bruins. They've had an excellent penalty kill all year. The power play is streaky at best. So if they can, continue to be excellent penalty killers, that will really be a good boost and take some pressure off of their goaltending. But I think another X factor is that Bruins third line, Trent Frederick, James Van Riemsdyk, Justin Brazeau, they were three of the best players, I think, on the ice in Game 7. Trent Frederick, I think he's probably an argument for the best. Jeremy Swayman is definitely the MVP of the whole team. But if you're looking at just, skaters, Trent Frederick would have to be a candidate for that. So I'd love to see him continue to be that player in round 2. He's also, a guy that he hasn't always had a lot of success in the playoffs. This past series was the first time he'd ever scored a playoff goal, and he ended up with 3. But is the type of guy that feels like he should be built for the playoffs because he is never one to shy away from some fight and aggression, but can also turn around and then score goals now, which was a part of his game that's really developed in the last 2 seasons. So he is a guy that should be built for the playoffs, and it showed in round 1, and would be great to see that continue in round 2.
Yeah, he's definitely a playoff type guy when you look at his play style for sure. So we'll see if he can continue that with the third line there, because they were a very good line. Riemsdyk had a couple goals, I believe. I know he had at least one.
Yeah. He had a lot of opportunities. I think he had a couple. He had more than a few hit posts. So those were going eventually.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to series MVP. Jacob, who do you got that's going to be their best player throughout this series?
I feel like it's the easiest answer is Matt Tkachuk. This is the type of series that he's just built for. He's a big player. He's a big time player. This is going to be a scoring series. It's going to be a physical series, and it's something that he has the personality for it. He has just the game for it, and he's that pesty type guy. And with the rivalry mentality that's just going to be going on throughout the whole thing, he's going to be running his mouth. He's going to be running his body. He's going to be doing every, dirty, nifty little move that he can possibly think of to get under the skin of every single person. He's going to be scoring goals. He's going to be putting up assists. He's going to be doing those wacky celebrations if he scores an overtime goal where he just runs off the ice and tells everybody to follow him off. So it's going to be those types of things where it's going to be the Matt Tkachuk show. And I think that's really going to drive him, and his teammates are going to follow him. And I think that's really going to pull him into that series MVP type, mentality. And I think he's going to lead the way.
Yeah, I don't think he was at his best against the Lightning either. So you look out. He probably will come to play in this one for sure. Hannah, who would be your series MVP in this one?
I feel like it's obvious. I'm gonna go with Jeremy Swayman.
Yeah.
I think he has the hot hand right now. He was incredible in the first round. I can't be said enough. If they are making it out of round two, it's gonna be on his back again. So
Yeah.
even if, Allmark gets a couple games in, Swayman is the hot hand right now. He is, I think, the best goaltender currently in the postseason. He will be the Bruins MVP if they make it out of this round. And even if
Yeah.
they don't, he's probably still gonna he's gonna keep them competitive.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure. I think he's probably the starter in Boston next year. I don't know where Allmark if he's going to go anywhere, but I think he's on his way to being that
Yes.
for sure.
Yep.
All right, let's finish this off with some predictions. And Hannah, I'll start with you. Who is going to win this series and in how many games?
I think it's gonna be Florida in 6. The Bruins fan in me hates that, but the realist is saying Florida in 6.
All
I would
right.
love to be proven wrong.
We'll see. I don't know what you predicted in the last series. I think you may have went with Toronto in 7. I'm not sure.
I said Boston in
It's
7.
Boston in 7, right? And you said if Toronto would win it, they were going to win the cup.
Yes, yeah. If the year Toronto beats Boston in the playoffs is the year Toronto's winning it all.
That's what it was, right? So you were right on the Bruins going in 7. Jacob, what about you? Or who you got in this series?
Just on that note, let's just hope Toronto doesn't win it in general. We'll just keep it that way and keep me happy in general. No, I'm gonna stick with the Florida. I like the Florida in 6 idea because I had that idea myself. I think that's a fair assessment. I think there's going to be a little bit of back and forth at the start of it. I think they're going to split the first 4 and just go 2-2, and then I think Florida is just going to take the next 2 after that. And I think it's going to be a fun kind of series. I think it's going to be close in every single game. I don't think there's going to be any blowouts either way. I think it's going to be 1-goal games for the majority of them. And I'll bet you out of the 6th game, even 3 of them go to overtime.
I was going to say, I think there's going to be some overtime in this series.
Gonna be some long games.
It's going to be a good time. I can't wait to watch these.
Yeah.
What I want, haven't been that yet. Has been the longest overtime? Double?
I think we've had a double
First
so
round?
far this playoffs.
Yeah, and I think it was done early on in the double overtime.
I don't think they made it past the 15-minute mark.
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't seen a crazy long one yet, and
No,
we'll
not yet.
get one in this one.
Well, I don't mind anymore because I'm on the West Coast, so it's not going
bad. There
past
you go.
midnight for me anymore.
Yeah, those late games don't go crazy, right?
No.
Well,
All
being in
right.
Buffalo, I get to stay up nice and late, so it should be fun for me.
We'll see how this series plays out. Should be a fun one. But thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Jacob for stepping in for Joey there. But we'll see who's going to move on to the Eastern Conference Final and see if the Bruins can do it or the Panthers can return there from last year. So, but until next time, we'll see you on another one. But make sure checking out everything at thehockeywriters.com. We got great previews. We got recaps right after the game and lots of fun stuff going on there. So make sure checking all that out, and we'll see you on the next video.